What's going on, guys? Ace Cod, another top 10 video. Said it's going to make another top 10 video. People like top 10 videos. They watch top 10 videos. I like to see people's opinions on top 10 things. Top 10 lists, right? So before I get into this next one, just want to say that instead of putting this at the end of the video, I thought I'd put it at the beginning of the video, that you guys should come join the Discord server. If you watch my videos, then come to the Discord server, talk to me, talk to people, and I can get feedback from you guys, and we'll have a good, nice time. And maybe this video is not for everybody, but, you know, who cares? Here we go. Top 10 worst Pokemon. These are Pokemon that I think are bad, lame, or just disappointing. There's a lot of factors that could go into this, but I just want to specify that mainly I am not looking at these Pokemon's competitive viability or stats and just how they are visually or conceptually that makes them bad and why I don't like them. So here we go. Top 10 worst Pokemon. If you don't like it, well, you're wrong, I'm right. So here we go. Now, number 10, I put this high up on the list because I don't really think that these Pokemon are bad, but I think that they really struggle with being stand out, and they're really bland and just boring and uninteresting, and that's the elemental monkeys. Pansage, Pansear, and Panpour. They don't really have anything going on, you know? They're just monkeys, elemental monkeys, fire, water, earth. And I think what they were kind of trying to do is, like, if you were a new player and you chose the water starter and there was a gym coming up that was grass type, then you would have the option to take the Pansear, so you'd have, like, that type advantage. But if they wanted to do something like that, they could have made 3 different unique Pokemon that, you know, are different from each other. Because the problem is, if there was just a monkey, if it was just Pansear by himself, and a big flaming monkey, I mean, they already have, like, Infernape, the Infernape line, but if they just did that, and then they made some sort of grass Pokemon that was something else that wasn't a monkey, and they made a water Pokemon that was something else that wasn't a monkey, it would be better. It would turn out better in terms of design and visual appeal, but instead they just made 3 monkeys with different colors. And they're kind of lame. But they're not terrible, so that's why they're only number 10 on this list. So coming up for number 9 is, believe me, that my favorite type is bug types, because I love insects, like I have said before, I believe. And Beautifly is just another boring Pokemon. It's also high on this list because I like bug types, but they already had a butterfly Pokemon with Butterfree. And while I don't think Butterfree is, like, great or anything, it's a butterfly Pokemon, which is cool. And then they went a generation without one, and then they put in Beautifly. And then, you know, in Generation 5, or maybe it was 6, I don't remember which one specifically, they added Vivillon. But Vivillon is cool because it has a bunch of different wing patterns that it can get. Now I understand that they probably couldn't have implemented something like that in an earlier generation. Generation 3, where Beautifly was introduced. I get that. But the fact that Vivillon has the differing wing patterns makes it a lot more interesting to see and look at than Beautifly. Now you look at the flip side of both Butterfree and Beautifly, and you have Beedrill, which is way cooler than Butterfree, and you have Dustox, which is cooler than Beautifly. And so I just feel like they already filled out the butterfly concept with Butterfree, and they didn't really do anything new with Beautifly when they could have had some other type of insect in that spot. Now, of course, you could say the same thing for Dustox and Venomoth. Yeah, Venomoth. I always struggle to remember that one. I always remember Venonat, but Venonat's better than Venomoth, so I don't ever remember its name. But Dustox and Venomoth are also incredibly similar, so that's just kind of lazy, but Dustox looks cool, and Beautifly is just a butterfly. So I don't really find it that interesting. Moving on to number 8 is something that I think a lot of people are split on, and I want to kind of... Number 8 is Alolan forms, alright? They introduced Alolan forms in Generation 7 to breathe life back into old Pokemons and give them new typings and stuff, and it's cool. Like, the concept itself of an Alolan form, or a different form of a Pokemon that is a different type or different shape or whatever, because it's evolved in a different environment, it needs to survive. Like, they're Alolan forms because they're in a tropical environment where it's hot all the time, and there's different dangers and things that they need to survive. That's a cool concept. It's really interesting, and I like that. But the problem with Alolan forms is that they only gave them to Generation 1 Pokemon, and not Pokemon from any other generation, which, to me, feels like nostalgia pandering for people who played the first game, and they want to try and get them back into the series, so they're like, hey, remember, what is it, Ninetales? It's an Ice type now, isn't that crazy? I don't like that they made it exclusive to Generation 1 Pokemon. I think that's not healthy for the other generations, and it just doesn't really give love to any of the other Pokemon that they've created over the years. But the concept of Alolan forms itself is good. I just wish that they maybe expanded on it a bit more. Another thing that's similar to this, and they were talking about a little bit, was Mega Evolutions. And I like Mega Evolutions because it's basically the same thing. It breathes life into old Pokemon, but instead of making only Generation 1 Pokemon have Mega Evolutions, they spread it across the board, and now you have all these different Pokemon getting Mega Evolutions, and I like that. And it's cool, because now you have several different generations of Pokemon getting love, and it's nice. However, for number 7, there is a dud in the Mega Evolutions. Well, there's a couple duds, but one of them is a bit more disappointing to me than others. Number 7, one of my favorite Pokemon is Sableye. Sableye's design is based around, like, urban legend alien encounters and cryptids like Mothman and the Flatwoods Monster and things like that, and I eat that shit up. I love that stuff. So, Sableye is really, really cool, because he's like a little gremlin with the gem eyes. Like, if you were to see him in the dark, he'd look like, you know, it's just the eyes shining in the distance. He's very, very cool. Very cool Pokemon. But he doesn't have an evolution. They did give him a Mega Evolution, and when I heard that they gave him a Mega Evolution, I was excited because I was like, oh, maybe they can further build upon this idea that he's a sort of urban legend cryptid Pokemon. But they just gave him a big gem. And, I mean, it's just upsetting because there's so much more they could have done with Sableye based on what he is designed around. They could have made him more like Mothman. They could have made him more like the Flatwoods Monster. They could have made him like... Dude, you could have even made him look like a Sasquatch and I would have been satisfied. But this big gem thing, It's an injustice to what Sableye was originally designed for, and I don't like it. I do not like it. Number 6 is the only other bug type on this list, and the reason it is on this list, because I love bug types, is it shouldn't be a bug type, and that's Accelgor. Accelgor doesn't look like a bug. He just doesn't. And the whole thing going on with Shelmet and what's that other one's name? Like Escavalier, he probably shouldn't be a bug type either, but the difference between Escavalier that makes him cool and Accelgor that's not cool is that Escavalier is a fucking knight, and that's really awesome. And Accelgor is kind of, I guess he's supposed to be like a ninja or something, and that's kind of lame. He's just floating there, and it's like, I don't get it. I don't know what the pre-evolution form for Accelgor is, because I never bothered catching it. Or it's Shelmet, isn't it? Because Shelmet evolves into Accelgor for some weird reason, and then the Carablast, is that what it's called? And Carablast evolves into Escavalier. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like, you look at the Pokemon, and it doesn't make sense. Moving on to number 5, we have sort of a hot debate within the Pokemon community over the past couple of generations is Pokemon that aren't animals, but rather inanimate objects. Like Vanillux, Klefki, Garbodor, stuff like that, right? And I think all three of those Pokemon are really cool. Vanillux has personality with his dopey, goofy face, right? He's cool. He's not like the best Pokemon ever or anything, but I think he's fine. And Garbodor is a literal garbage Pokemon, which is actually really awesome. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate him because of the fact that he's garbage. But to me, the fact that he's made of junk is really interesting. And Klefki, while he's just a pair of floating keys, when compared to number 5, you gotta say, well, Honedge, right? Honedge is a floating sword with an eyeball. He's got an eyeball. And I think he's like a spirit possessing the blade, right? Now you look at Honedge and you look at Klefki, and they're both kind of just these floating objects without a lot of personality. But then you think, which one have you seen more of in other games? A floating sword or a floating pair of keys? A floating pair of keys is a lot more unique and creative than a floating sword. Now, admittedly, when Honedge evolves into Aegislash, it gets a little bit more interesting because he gets a shield and all that. That's more interesting. But Honedge on its own, just a floating sword, is kind of... I don't know about that one, you know? It's just kind of lame. Now, from 4 and onward, these are Pokemon that I actually can say with confidence that I do not like, and you might even say that I hate them, and when people talk about them, I get angry. So, here we go. For number 4, I want you to think about the legendary trios that we've had over the years. We've got the legendary birds, we've got the legendary dogs, which are, you know, those are all right. I'm not a big fan of, like, birds or dogs, per se, but they're fine. Stylistically, they look different enough that they're unique in their own right while still being part of the same trio. Then we have the Golem trio, and those guys are badass. The Reggies are fucking great. I love those guys. Then we have the Spirits, and those guys are okay. And so for Generation 5, you'd think they would give us something good. But they didn't. They didn't give us something good because they give us... I don't even know what they're called. Like the trio itself, I don't know what they're called. Landorus, Thundurus, and Tornadus. And they're not cool. Right? I mean, it's the same thing as with the Elemental Monkeys, right? If they had just left it as Thundurus and just left him like that, it's like he's kind of like a genie. Like a genie is actually really cool. But then you pair him up with the other two that look almost exactly the same, and it's like, I don't know, it's like the creative juices just weren't there. Now, I love Generation 5. I love Generation 5 because they made a lot of bug Pokemon, and they made a lot of bug Pokemon viable. Because bug types kind of get shit on, right? But this is just, these three don't really have anything going for them. They all look way too similar, and they're not interesting at all. Now, I know that they have, like, their incarnate forms or whatever they're called, right? And they become a bird and a dog and some other type of, I think it's a dragon or whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that their base forms are shit. They look the same. If they had just left just one of them alone and been a cool legendary genie, they would be really cool in my eyes. But then they added the extra ones and they all look the same, and they're not well designed. So for number 3, I want you to think about starter Pokemon, and think back to, you know, when you're picking your starter Pokemon, sure, you might pick it based on how cute it is at the start, but for a lot of people, you probably pick it based on what you believe it might turn into, right? If you have a Piplup, you can pretty much expect that it's going to evolve into a great big penguin like Empoleon. Or if you have a Tepig, you can pretty much expect that it's going to evolve into a giant flaming pig, right? But there's one exception to this rule that I don't think enough people get angry about, because a lot of people actually like this Pokemon, and it pisses me off that this Pokemon even exists. So in Generation 3, one of the starter Pokemon you can pick is Torchic. I like Torchic. It's a chicken that breathes fire. That's pretty cool, right? Then it evolves into Combusken. Once again, it's a chicken that breathes fire. So when I have Combusken, when little 12, 11-year-old me has a Combusken and I'm waiting for it to evolve into another giant flaming chicken, I'm ready, you know? I'm so ready. But then it evolves into Blaziken. And Blaziken is like, it's not a chicken. It's not a chicken. It's like a hawk, or it's like a humanoid bird thing. And it's not a chicken. Why is it not a chicken? I don't get it. I don't understand why it's not a chicken. Because Torchic and Combusken are chickens, roosters. Even, you could even call them hens. But Blaziken is not. It's not. It's just an anthropomorphic bird that stands on two legs and is like, I'm a bird. But it's not a chicken. It needs to be a chicken. And Blaziken, everybody likes Blaziken, but it's not cool. It's not cool. It's dumb. There are lots of other better fire starters, namely Emboar and Infernape. But there is one fire starter that I'm sure everyone's familiar with, and I absolutely cannot stand this Pokemon. For number 2, we have 2 fire starters in a row. For number 2, I gotta ask you guys, do you remember? Do you guys remember him? You guys remember Charizard? Anybody remember Charizard? Hey, guys, remember when you were really young and there was Charizard? Let's give Charizard a Mega Evolution. Let's not, you know what? Let's not give him 1. Let's give him 2. Let's give him 2 Mega Evolutions. Remember when Ash had a Charizard, guys? Hey, guys, remember Charizard? Let's put Charizard in Smash. Guys, I love Charizard. Oh, you guys, you talking to some guy on the street. Hey, what's your favorite Pokemon? Oh, my favorite Pokemon's Charizard. Fuck you. Fuck you. Charizard's gay and stupid and lame. Charizard is not cool. Charizard's dumb. And if you like Charizard, I don't like you, because he's a stupid dragon. Dragons aren't cool. First off, dragons are the worst type. Charizard's not even a dragon type to begin with. But he looks like a dragon. That doesn't make sense. I don't even care about that. Dragons are lame. He's a dragon. Everybody likes him because he's a dragon. He won't die. He's been here since Generation 1. We've had tons of better fire starter designs since then, but we still talk about Charizard. Charizard, fuck Charizard. But number 1. Enough about Charizard. Number 1. Why don't I like Charizard? Not Charizard. I messed up. See, I'm thinking about Charizard. Number 1, what? By this point, you're probably expecting me to say something like, okay, he doesn't like Pokemon that are popular, so number 1's probably going to be Pikachu or something, right? I like Pikachu. I think Pikachu's a good mascot. He's cute and represents the series well. But number 1 is the Pokemon that I don't think is very popular. And, you know, I get it. I understand the design philosophy behind this Pokemon. He's supposed to be like an iceberg, or the underside of an iceberg, or something, I don't know. But Avalugg he's just the worst Pokemon ever made. I don't know why they made him. The problem with Avalugg is that he looks like a coffee table. He looks like something you would walk in and use as a table. He's a table Pokemon, not an iceberg Pokemon. They literally, all they had to do to make this Pokemon cool and make me like it was make that iceberg that's underneath him. Why is it pointing downwards? It doesn't make sense. Turn it right side up. Now he's an iceberg. Even if he's flat on the bottom, that'd be totally fine, because then he's got this big mountain on his back. Why is it underneath him? It doesn't make sense. He carries the Bergmites around on top of him. I don't care. The Bergmites can hang on to the iceberg on top of him even if it was right side up. Why is it underneath him? It's atrocious. It's bad. Why does he look like that? Anyway, that was my top 10. Support me on Patreon if you like listening to me yell about stupid shit. Come join the Discord channel. I know I said it at the beginning, but come join it. I beg you. I plead you. Come join. Talk to me. Talk to your friends. Come meet new people. It's a good time. All right, I'll see you next time.